I think he was in his character. I mean, that is what President Ruto does. When he visits you, he'll praise you. When he goes to your neighbor, he will say how bad you are. And that is in his character. In fact, if you checked during the campaigns, anytime he went around anywhere near Luo Nyanza, he would call Raila Amolo Odinga Agwambu. But when he comes to the mountain, he would call him a witch, and so that is him. That is what he does. So when he's with you,
relevance and point
no, Cheregei, wait for your time. You know, it is the Standard that has written that has a headline that, of course, is slammed the World Bank, while he's Minister for Finance.
But how does Raila Odinga come
the
into
Treasury?
The conversation?
I'm just trying to explain that it was in his character that when he's with you, he will praise you, but when he is far from you, he will say how bad you are. I don't know why. What makes it very hard for Senator Cheregei to understand? I'm just trying to explain the character of the person of the president.
Respects Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
He should respect the broad-based arrangement.
All right, Nyuta, just 1 minute.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. You know, Senator Cheregei has said that I'm a playwright and I should take some tutorials from Senator Malala. And thank you for identifying that particular potential in me. But Senator Cheregei he does very well with mischief. He's the kind of person that in the house will, when he doesn't want to vote for a bill, he will just start shouting, and when he's told, Senator Cheregei, please take your seat, he will not, he will shout even the more, so that he's kicked out by the speaker. So I think he also needs to write a book on how to be mischievous, especially in the house, and how also
you need to protect
remember
as the moderator.
Remember Senator Cheregei?
It's okay.
Was used as a spy by President Ruto, and he used to follow Cheregei all the time when he was deputy president. And he used to speak like he was Cheregei's friend. But now you know he's a spy. He was a spy. And so he can also write that in his book, after mischief, then how to spy and to report back to the master. So many people, I mean, they have talked about that Senator. I've listened to Wakili and he's saying that Orango is not an activist since Yaya. He should not be talking about human rights violation. I just wanted to remind Wakili, and being a lawyer, of course, he should know that you are first a citizen and then senator, governor, Wakili, or something like that. Yeah. And so as a citizen of Kenya, you have a right to speak. Any citizen, you have a right in your capacity as a citizen. Yeah. You have a right to speak against the violation of human rights in any place and to anybody. You know.
Safi, karibu tena mtazamaji, hapa ni Bonita Media na kama kawaida kwa majina naitwa Boniface Owino. Na mtazamaji, wacha nianze na kusema hivi ya kwamba ukiona kiongozi ama mtu yote ana midomo ama anazungumza sana, ile mtu ambaye anapayuka na maneno, ukiona kwamba anazungumza, wewe jua kwamba huyo mtu hana dhamana. Yani huyo mtu hata heshima yake mwenyewe hajipi heshima. Mtu ambaye hawezi akajiheshimu, hakuna siku ambayo huyo mtu utapata kwamba atakuja kuheshimu watu. Nazungumza hivyo mtazamaji kwa sababu leo asubuhi, kwa wale ambao walikosa kutazama Daybreak, wale watu ambao walikosa kutazama Daybreak, leo asubuhi kulikuwa na interview pale Citizen TV kati ya Trevor Umbija, kulikuwa na Senator Cheregei, kulikuwa na Senator Nyuta na pamoja na Tom Ojienda. Huyu ni Professor Tom Ojienda na jamaa fulani hapa, I think yeye pia ni professor. Na mtazamaji, kuna mtu ambaye ningependa tumsikize sana. Unaona mtu ambaye anaitwa Cheregei. Cheregei ni miongoni mwa wale viongozi ambao wanataka sana wasikizwe. Yani they don't have any point, but they want people to listen to them. That is the problem. Like there is nothing that they're saying constructive, but they insist that people should listen to them. Like kwa mfano, unasikia Cheregei anasema ya kwamba mtu kama Edwin Sifuna, Anyang' Nyong'o pamoja na James Agri Orengo ni wale watu miongoni mwa wale watu ambao wanajaribu kusabotage serikali, wanajaribu kumweka William Samoei to pressure.
I agree largely with you know, if an hippopotamus tells you the crocodile is unwell, there is nothing else to say, because most of my colleagues have alluded the good professor.
Yeah.
is playing cheap populist. And when I read that letter and the response and attacking the president, I found it, and even I tweeted about it, I found it does not have basis. It's more of populism, it's more pedestrian, and these are saboteurs of broad-based arrangement. Him, Orango, and Sifuna. And therefore, they have been trying in all means to sabotage the broad-based arrangement government, which has undermined the success, the stability. You can listen to the good senator of a number of serious projects that are ongoing in Nyanza region. Yet he's telling us that we are going back to Nyaro era, yet Nyanza for the first time has gotten very serious projects, number one. Number two, has gotten very senior appointments, including Meisol Resto, CDF Ogola. We now have chairman of budget and finance coming from that region. We now have a CS of money, John Badi, pesa inalala kule Nyanza. So which president did it happen under Moyera? No. So what Professor Nyang is playing to the gallery. He must and should withdraw and apologize to the president. Because what is unfortunate, my brother Trevor, is that the professor can raise this issue at the summit in State House when they meet the president with the governors. He can raise at IBEC where deputy president sits there. So, and he has received 71 billion. I'm a neighbor to Kisumu County. There is no 71.3 billion in Kisumu. Even the roads I use around Papa Odid, Nyamasaria, all those places, even to your house, you cannot access your house, and those roads are being done by Professor Nyang. He has abdicated, delegated his duty. And that is why I'm of the position that these roads should be given to the national government, because even Governor Sang, he's so inept that he has run down even my own village road to access my house, which should be done by the county, cannot be done across. And you are my neighbor and you know that. The issue that we need to do is that Governor Nyong'o, Governor Orango, and Senator Sifuna must stop blackmailing the president. We shall not allow him an inch. And I want to ask with respectfully His Excellency Prime Minister Raila Odinga, although I've seen people saying he wants to run for Pope, but we want to call them out for trying to attack Baba, we will not take it lightly also, that he must call out. He must call out Governor Nyong'o, Governor Orango, and Senator Sifuna for this incessant and irritant blackmail and undermine the broad-based government. The broad-based government is one of the best, and I remember they used to accuse Professor Tom Ojenda because he came to government early, and they used to accuse him of giving out tea in State House. I'm surprised whenever they go to State House, it is Professor Tom Ojenda who shows them around the State House. So they must be honest. Finally, Trevor, I wish the Council of Governors have gone to court over RLMF. Yesterday, by the way, in fact, I'm surprised governors did not even involve us. Our meeting with the National Assembly leadership chaired by the Speaker yesterday, Mutula Kilonzo was there. They sat and decided that the court case that Council of Governors has taken to court over 11 billion under road maintenance levy fund, that they stole, yet they didn't involve us as the Senate, because we protect the interest of the so the governors want to have their cake and eat it. Finally, on the issue of these billions of shillings, I agree that we must ensure that counties are well remunerated. They must get equitable. But governors, as much as they demand for more resources, they should tell us how much billions are they using, for example. Number two, they are lying to the people in Mashinani that the only money they get is from equitable shareable revenue. That is not true. They get money from own source revenue, but the revenue potential of Kisumu is more than 1 billion. But he's collecting less than 500 million. Where is the rest? Number two, they are getting loans and grants from World Bank. These monies must show value for the resources that we have. And therefore, even as I conclude with respectful on the issue of Kera and Kura, in fact, I want to tell you, if there are agencies that are so irretrievably corrupt about Kura and Kera. For example, in Kera, what they do, as from the DG's office here in Nairobi, they will call a regional engineer of Kera in Kisumu, do a PQ of grading, maraming, culverting, but they only do grading. So in fact, EACC must investigate Kera and Kura because they are most corrupt. What we are saying is that the issue of road should be reclassified and restructured, but we should also fight corruption within Kera and Kura because we don't see value for money. Okay. Because even in our local centers, there is not that value that we see, but we are not saying that the national government should not play a role, but we need to harmonize the issue of reclassification and lining of roads within counties.
Sasa niulize, itakuwaje anasema kwamba au watu wanajaribu kumweka William Samoei Ruto pressure, ila hali tunajua vizuri ya kwamba William Samoei Ruto mwenyewe anajiweka pressure kwa yale mambo ambayo anayafanya. Hakuna kitu ambacho, alafu nasikia anasema kwamba Raila Odinga anapaswa kuongea. So washagundua vizuri ya kwamba Raila Odinga hajaizungumza tangia au watu waanze kuzungumza kuhusu hii broad based government. Like, there is no need of us supporting the broad based government because it's not helping us in any way. So why you guys insisting that we should support the broad based government? That is the question. Kwa nini nyinyi mna insist kwamba tunapaswa ku support the broad based government, ila hali sisi wenyewe tuwajua vizuri kwamba broad based government hakuna kitu ambacho inatuletea. Broad based government ni ile tu viongozi, baadhi ya viongozi wanajaribu wanaangalia mambo mawili matatu jinsi ambavyo wanaweza kufaidika wenyewe. Sisi kama wananchi hakuna kitu ambacho tunafaidika nayo. So kama tuna wale viongozi ambao wanahisia ya kwamba wanapaswa kututetea kwenye broad based government, na nyinyi mnaona kwamba hao viongozi hakuna kazi ambao wanafanya, so mnapaswa kupin them down, I don't think if it's necessary. So mtazamaji, ningependa tusikize, kwa sababu nimesikia mpaka Nyuta anamfinya sana Cheregei. Nyuta anamfinya sana Cheregei, anamwambia kwamba Cheregei hakuna, yani Cheregei ni mtu ambaye hajai make any election ama hajaifanya kitu yote parliament. Ati kitu yote ikienda kufanyika unasikia Cheregei anapiga kelele akitaka tu ya kwamba afukuzwe. Baada ya kufukuzwa itasemekana kwamba hakuna kitu ambacho amekifanya. Mtazamaji, ningeomba tusikize hawa jamaa.
You know, Senator Cheregei has said that I'm a playwright and I should take some tutorials from Senator Malala. And thank you for identifying that particular potential in me. But Senator Cheregei he does very well with mischief. He's the kind of person that in the house will, when he doesn't want to vote for a bill, he will just start shouting, and when he's told, Senator Cheregei, please take your seat, he will not, he will shout even the more, so that he's kicked out by the speaker. So I think he also needs to write a book on how to be mischievous, especially in the house, and how also
you need to protect him.
Remember,
as the moderator.
Remember Senator Cheregei?
It's okay.
Was used as a spy by President Ruto, and he used to follow Cheregei all the time when he was deputy president. And he used to speak like he was Cheregei's friend, but now you know he's a spy. He was a spy, and so he can also write that in his book, After Mischief, then How to Spy, and to report back to the master. So many people, I mean, they have talked about that Senator. I've listened to Wakili and he's saying that Orango is not an activist since Yaya. He should not be talking about human rights violation. I just wanted to remind Wakili, and being a lawyer, of course, he should know that you are first a citizen and then senator, governor, Wakili, or something like that. Yeah. And so as a citizen of Kenya, you have a right to speak. Any citizen, you have a right in your capacity as a citizen. Yep. You have a right to speak against the violation of human rights in any place and to anybody. You know, I've listened to Wakili also talk about the age of leaders, that Anyang' Nyong'o is 81.
Which Wakili? We are three?
No. Okay. You are senator, he's senator. Wakili Nyamori.
Okay. I hope you're going to do a comparative analysis between
I'm coming to that, Wakili.
Your governors and ours.
Yes. And in fact, I'm with you in that argument that older leaders should give room to younger leaders.
Correct.
But he did not say whether Raila Molo Odinga also, who is 80 years this year, he did not tell us whether he avoided telling us that Raila Odinga then, following the same argument, should cede leadership to the younger generation. That he won't say, because he's interested in a political seat. So when we sit here, we are just pontificating about things, but we are not honest with ourselves. Okay. You know, Wakili here, you will see a professional, but he's a politician. That's why he avoids saying Baba should also go home, as Nyong'o and Orango go home. He has, you know, I watched Wakili talking about, he's from my region. I'm all from my region. The PS is from my region. My region. Had it been somebody from Mount Kenya, Murima, it would have been, see, They believe they are the only ones who can lead. So, you know, let us not preach water while drinking wine.
Okay.
Let us accept that our society is ethnicized as Kenya, and not blame one region for it. And finally, because I do not want to take more time, in fact, we don't have time, I know. Professor Ojienda said that Orango implied that some leaders were sycophantic, and that is the problem he had with the submission by Orango in that funeral. And he just made the right implication. It is the truth. You know, you will hear, you will even go to Senate forums, and you will see now pro-government ODM legislators, you know, supporting government even more than UDA legislators. Right. So that is the sycophancy Orango was talking about. All right. But I invite all of them to listen to the ground. Kwa sababu, kwa ground mambo ni.
All right. Prof, is there a problem with this sort of deals when we see 143 billion value of Ruto's deals before meeting China President Xi Jinping without necessarily getting the other side of it in terms of what does Kenya have to give? Because it's a quid pro quo. So if this amount of investment comes in, what are we giving in return?
Thank you, Trevor. Trevor, I think the first thing that we must say in response to some of what we are seeing is that, one, there's need to bridge the gap in this country, and that the president is doing the right thing. Because, number one, the president did not just go to China to negotiate for loans without a basis. The framework is that we have specific projects, 15 key infrastructural projects that we are trying to bridge so that the gap, and of course there's no doubt that the debt ceiling has probably gone high, but with a purpose. Trevor, Kenya is a third world country. Of course, we are moving to the next level. And I have seen many things, the cliches around where Kenya is at in comparison to Uganda, Tanzania, and other countries. But the position is this. The president has addressed two important things. The framework of borrowing by the World Bank and the IMF that have traditionally been hinged, or that traditionally factor on a number of key reform questions and other things that governments must do, in my view, are outdated. And this is the divide between China and the US. When Trump came into power, he brought in a number of reforms, and those reforms affected institutions, including USAID, and many people lost their projects out there and in Kenya and in the region. President Ruto is doing what he must to ensure that in these deals with China, he's able to bridge the gap out of certain projects that were traditionally funded by funds from, there are the main funds, but there are also side funds. And the president then, in addressing China and knowing that, of course, he'll get funding from China, knows that when Beijing funds projects, there'll be, of course, the quid pro quo, which is cooperation in a number of areas. And I think, and it is not lost to us, that even IMF and the World Bank would also only give conditional loans. Their loans are not without a condition. So there's nothing new in this arrangement. I think what we need to be concerned about as a people is that we want to see these loans applied for the benefit of infrastructure development in this country within a framework where we do not have waste in the application of these funds. Even when we see the fight or the struggle between the national and devolved units on who should apply funds, for instance, the RLMF funds that are appropriated for the benefit of our people eventually, we know that in the end, we want to see a framework that best utilizes the funds for the benefit of the people of this country. And I think lastly, let me just point to this. The president is doing a good job. It is good to have a president, at least who goes out there, aware that we need to grow this country. We do not want to see what we saw last year, the finance bills that unduly tax Kenyans, or that unduly make it difficult for Kenyans to lead a normal life. We must bridge that gap. And how do we bridge that gap? You only bridge it when you go out there. Yes. So I think we should be thanking President Ruto for what he's doing good for this country. He's not just sitting back and taxing Kenyans locally to develop our infrastructure. Remember, we also need the infrastructure. If we don't have good infrastructure, Trevor, we cannot grow. I will give you in a few certain projects that we have. For instance, in some of these counties, when the governors talk about going back to the Moi era, it's unfortunate. Okay. Because, Trevor, I know that since the advent of devolution, certain counties, my county has almost received 69 billion Kenyan shillings, for instance.
We're coming to that conversation.
Yeah, but just as I'm just giving you a tip of the conversation. Yeah. That devolution has brought in a framework that has seen new levels of growth in the 47 counties. And the president is simply trying to bridge the gap by ensuring that the national is able to deliver in its set functions that, and the regions or the governors under Schedule 4 of the Constitution as defined, are also able to deliver. Okay. So let the president work for the people of this country.
Okay, we're coming to that conversation right after this break. Yes. But Nyamori, let me hear your thoughts on this. Is this
the other thing that we should get very worried about, and which is, of course, it's shameful and embarrassing, is that when we go borrowing this money, basically like, begging for assistance from these foreign capitals. And then when we come back home, we exhibit, or we lead lifestyles, that exhibit opulence. That we see, for example, the president dishing out huge amounts of money out there in cash, actually, not in checks. Then we get very worried that, a beggar, you go with a bowl to beg. Then when you go back home, you are overspending, there is corruption, there is opulence. I think we need to rethink again about this. But talking about the headline in the Standard, where the president slammed the World Bank because he was in China. I think he was in his character. That is what President Ruto does. When he visits you, he'll praise you. When he goes to your neighbor, he will say how bad you are. And that is in his character. In fact, if you checked during the campaigns, anytime he went around anywhere near Luo Nyanza, he would call Raila Amolo Odinga Agwambo. But when he comes to the mountain, he would call him a witch. And so that is him. That is what he does. So when he is with you,
relevance and point
no, Cheregei, wait for your time. It is the Standard that has written that has a headline that, of course, he slammed the World Bank, while he's Minister for Finance.
But how does Raila Odinga come
the
into
Treasury?
The conversation?
I'm just trying to explain that it was in his character that when he's with you, he'll praise you. But when he is far from you, he will say how bad you are. I don't know what makes it very hard for Senator Cheregei to understand. I'm just trying to explain the character of the person of the president. So there is he cannot say where is the Nyanza and whatever is coming in. I'm just explaining he was in his character. But then even when you want to practice infidelity, you do not, because Senator Cheregei has put it very well. And he has said that we have to play both sides, which is strategic, and I agree with him. Yeah. But even when you want to practice infidelity, you do not have to speak ill of the other partner. Just come and talk nicely to the partner you are with. You don't have to. So he didn't have to, he didn't have to slam the World Bank. Okay. He only needed to talk well of China, which was bringing these PPP programs.
But
PPP is a very PPP, you know Senator Cheregei. I don't know what makes him so impatient. He never had me interject
because
when he
he's
was
misleading
talking.
the country.
You will get your time to prove to me.
Okay.
You'll get your time to prove that I'm misleading the country. So what I'm saying is that you do not have to talk ill of the other person if you want to play both sides. You just talk well of the person that you are with, because of course you will have time with the other person or with the other party. And so I think that is what my view is about this.
While we defend devolution, we must also ensure that we do not just speak to devolution in politics, but in the reality. Trevor, let me just show you something that will surprise you, and this is important, that infrastructure is at the core of governance so much that we cannot ignore certain things. We cannot ignore the fact that since the advent of devolution, counties have benefited from funds. I'll just move by way of example, and that is just show them how inaccurate Governor Nyong'o's statements are. Since the advent of devolution, in fact, from the time of yes, from not even Jack, the first governor, when devolution came into place, Kisumu has secured, was appropriated. So far, we have secured. Kisumu has received 71.3 billion Kenya shillings, because we receive about 12 billion per financial year. Homa Bay has received 69.5 billion.
Nandi.
Migori 70.7 billion, Siaya 61.2 billion. Now we have key projects that are highlighted. Just to show you briefly, the Kabonyo Kanyagwal project, which is in Nyamori's backyard, is now underway at a cost of 2.5 billion. Thanks to some of these projects or some of the developments that have come in the advent of the new framework. We have specific projects. The Lake Victoria Marine Rescue Coordination Center at 800 million. These are projects that are ongoing, real projects. The Mbita Homa Bay and Kindu Bay rehabilitation, 600 million going on. Homa Bay Fish Market, that is also going on, plus the Rusinga Ring Road that is being constructed 1.2 billion. I just want to show Trevor that some of the pronouncements by Governor Nyong'o, though they are intended to show that counties need a grip on governance, cannot be further from the truth. You cannot compare the period after the enactment of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, in August 2010, to what was prevailing then. You cannot compare the regime of President Ruto to the regime of President Moi, when we had a unitary system where the national determined every process. Correct. And it is that time, Trevor, where the roads in Wamunyoro, the ones he's talking about, were all constructed during the Uhuru Kenyatta time and the previous time, when you had during right from independence, the central government determined every process, Parliament determined every process. Then it was one parliament, it spoke the language of the executive. You cannot compare, and therefore that's the statement by Governor Nyong'o is unfortunate to that extent. Right. To the extent that we must protect devolution, is correct that we need to have a framework that protects devolution, and that's why we have Senate. We cannot therefore politicize reality. The reality is that we have a framework that protects devolution, that oversights devolution, that speaks to issues. The RLMF fund must be applied for the benefit of the people. It has to be appropriated through Parliament. Okay. How you then accuse President Ruto that we in the face of all these projects, that now we are back to Moi's time, is unfortunate. Okay.
Let me bring in Nyuta on this. Do you agree that the truth is that the Ruto regime has decided to go back on pre-devolution times of the Nyayo era, like Professor Nyuta was saying?
And I dare say, before I move, it is also blackmailish.
Blackmail. We'll talk about blackmail.
Is there that in English?
What's wrong with what he said?
Yeah, again, Ramogi Professional Caucus is, a caucus that brings together public intellectuals, intellectuals who are engaged on public matters, who are concerned about the governance of the country, about the economy of the country. What brings us together is the cultural heritage that we are the granddaughters and sons of Ramogi. We are focused towards, moving our region to the next level. We had issue with Governor Orango, and we have raised it, and we have called him out, and we are happy that it has generated a debate both locally and nationally and the issue we are raising is the governor is guilty of misconduct. Whether it gets to gross misconduct is another thing. Okay, and that is because the choice of venue for his attacks on the president was wrong. The president came to mourn with the community, to mourn a celebrated son, to mourn with his friend. And it was a somber mood. Everybody was speaking to the character of George Oduor. Orango then, for no apparent reason, takes on a tangent. And he is given to that. He did that during the burial of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, when the president, Moi, came to bury Jaramogi. He did that during the burial of the late Wakili Odede, who was the chairperson of the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. And so that is one issue. The other thing is that we ask ourselves, when the governor has a microphone, what are the priorities that he should speak to? Especially when the head of state is attending the venue. We expect him to learn from the escalator strategy in advocacy. And that is that you have 5 seconds to speak to priorities. Orango is not an activist in Siaya who can talk about civil and political rights. Orango is a duty bearer. He's a governor. He's a head of government. We expect him to cultivate diplomatic relations with the other governors and with the president, okay? So that his county and the residents of Siaya can benefit as much as possible. He failed. Trevor.
So mtazamaji, umesikiza hao watu, na sijui maoni yako ni gani kutokana na hayo mambo. Umesikia Cheregei akizungumza, umesikia Nyuta akizungumza, na umesikia Tom Ojienda pia akizungumza. Tom Ojienda ni unakumbuka Tom Ojienda ni mtu ambaye ni mtu wa kwanza kuenda kusupport hii serikali. Na yeye ndiye, I think hapo kuna wakati ambapo alikuwa anakashifiwa sana kwa kuamua kwenda kusupport hii serikali. Sasa hivi unasikia Cheregei anasema kwamba Tom Ojienda ndio mtu ambaye anaelekeza au watu ambao kina Badi pale State House. So mtazamaji, niambie maoni yako ni gani, na ningependa mtazamaji vile vile tukutane kwenye video ambayo inafuata ikiwezekana. Na cha msingi mtazamaji, usikose kubonyeza alama ya subscription ili wakati wote kuna ujumbe ambao nimeiweka inakuwa virahisi kwako mtazamaji kuupata. Tukutane kwenye video ambayo inafuata ikiwezekana mtazamaji. Nimekuwa wako Boniface Owino. Pingo.